Hey, I'm Alex back from Board Game Co, and this is To Back and Not To Back, where we're going to go through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns, talking about the pledges, the games, the stretch goals, all that and more, and of course, should you back it or not. Speaking of which, if you are new to the channel, first of all, welcome on board, thanks so much, subscribe, like, share, all those usual things, and also, if you want to know why I talk about value in this video series, I did a full video on that, and no, it's not so that you can go ahead and resell, well, technically it is so you can resell your game, but there's a tech, you can watch that video. In any case, this is To Back and Not To Back. Let's go ahead and dive into a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns, although, as usual, we are going to be starting off with our Cult of the Now. Crowdfunding is full of many, many games that are very, very tempting, that you'll also pay a lot of money for the deluxe versions of those games, and then also wait a year and a half, sometimes longer, to go ahead and get your hands on those games. And to be fair to the creators who don't make you wait that long, sometimes you might wait as short as a half a year. Sometimes shorter, but that's like really, really an edge case. In any case though, Cult of the Now is a reminder you can get great games now. Very often they are great games that were on crowdfunding, as this is today's Cult of the Now over on Game Nerds. We have Creature Caravan's Deluxe Edition, available for $80. Creature Caravan's getting all sorts of high praise so far. I've played it, I love it, I'm waiting for my copy anxiously. I think it might be my favorite Red Raven games, but I do need more plays to lock that in. This is not sponsored by Game Nerds or by Red Raven Games, it's just a game I like, and it's Cult of the Now, currently available. You can check it out now instead of having bought it a year and a half ago and waited for all the kinds of reviews and this and that and see. Sure, you are paying a bit more for it now. Sometimes when you wait a year and a half it is cheaper, and sometimes it's a little bit more. It all is case by case, and that is part of what we talk about in this series. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into the other crowdfunding campaigns, although as usual, let's go ahead and start off. Reminder that I am CMO of GameFound, take that into account as we go through this video series. And also, I'll note that over the past several months, I've been sponsored occasionally here and there by WSBG. This video is not sponsored by WSBG because the World Series of Board Gaming is going to be taking place very, 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 very shortly. And if you don't already have tickets and plans, you probably, not guaranteed, but probably are not going. That said, if you do want other plans, you can go ahead and check out Level Up Retreat. Level Up Retreat is going to be in 2025, January 31st to February 2nd. It's the convention that I co-host, or host. I'm together with Level Up events and whatnot, I host Level Up Retreat. We're going to be on our third retreat coming up shortly, and you can go ahead and check that out. Lots of fun games, lots of games to win, people to meet, all those fun things. That will be in February, or January 31st to February 2nd, and you can check that out at the link below. And with that, let's go ahead and start off with Board Game Adjacent. Starting off with Board Game Adjacent over here, this one isn't even really Board Game Adjacent, this is more just something that happens to exist by someone from the board game space, which is why I'm talking about The Big C. The Big C is a book over on BackKit, a book designed to help families work through tough times together. The Big C being obviously Big C, C for cancer, but also in terms of talking about a family standpoint, if you're talking about the Big C, it's a way of kind of helping families work through hard situations. It's based on Martin Poole, someone in the board game space. It's based on his own life situation, and it's being sponsored by a variety of board game publishers to help contribute and donate. A huge thank you to these publishers. For every book sold, £10 will be donated to charity thanks to the collective support from a variety of publishers in the board game space. So it's kind of a board game space adjacent project, but also if this is something that could be useful to yourself, this is The Big C, a book to help families work through tough times together. Then from there, we also have a continued board game adjacent category. We have the Jade board game table by Moonrabbit Games. This is a fascinating one. I debated whether to cover it or not because it almost certainly will not fund. Unless like a whole bunch of people watch this video and are like, wow, I want this table. I don't know if this one will fund. So like, I usually, even when I cover things that are in the not yet funding category, usually I cover them if I think there's a chance they'll fund. This one I am very, very skeptical will fund, but I still think it's worth covering for a variety of reasons. This is the Jade board game table by Moonrabbit Games. It's another board game table. There's a million of those out there. There's a million in different ways, at different kinds, at different price points. There are a lot of board game tables available for you to buy. The reason I want to focus on this one is a few things. First of all, on the negative side, I'll say if you watch the video for this table, at one point he's like, the reason we created this table is because we didn't see enough options out there that were like nice, quality, affordable tables. And I'm kind of like, well, the board game space has been chock full of a variety of tables from a variety of creators at a variety of price points in a variety of ways, and most of them advertise themselves as something that you can use as a dining room table at the same time, which is what this is doing. So that one part of the video, I was like, I don't know if you fully know the board game table space. We are chock full of board game tables. But on the more positive side, the reason I wanted to focus on this was a few-fold. First of all, it is a nice looking table. You can watch the video will go through the usual stuff where you see people eating on the table, you see people playing games on the table, you see people playing D&D and board games. You also see people spilling drinks across the table and how they quickly wipe it up. It's the usual things you see if you have seen many of these board game table campaigns, which I personally have. But then some things that were nice, I think, is first of all, the creator in this Moonrabbit game, Moonrabbit Tables, the creators in this video, if you watch them, there's a nice area element of realness to the people doing the video. Like, there's just enough mess ups that it comes across as like genuine and not overly scripted. There's a real human element. They talk about their goals, what they're trying to do. They talk about, you know, trying to make 3D component holders so it's more 3D printing accessible to a variety of people. They talk about a lot of things they're trying to do, and they talk a lot about like their risks and delays in a way that really came across as genuine. Like, if you are a creator in the board game space, I highly recommend, any space for that matter, I highly recommend checking out this video, because I really think the creator did a good job coming across as incredibly genuine about their responsibility to backers, their responsibility to the space, the nature of not being able to perfectly know everything, the nature of how, hey, we can't know everything in advance, but we will communicate with you. A lot of it, I mean, if this ever does, you know, fund and all that stuff, you have to follow up on those things, you have to follow through on those things, but it really came across as very, very well done. I'll also say the other reason I want to focus on is not just like the nice part of the video, but the fact that the price point of this table, if you were browsing past this table over here and you saw, let's go to the rewards over here, if you saw the $1,145 price point for the table, and you're like, okay, that's decent but not great, that includes the table topper. More often than not, when you see price points on tables, it doesn't include the tabletop in the price. Those like top leaves that go on the table, very often those are priced separately. And so if you're looking at this and thinking, hey, the price is not that great, the price is actually pretty decent, pretty reasonable, when you factor in that the table includes the table topper as part of the price and not as an additional extra. And I want to focus on that primarily because if you were drive-by browsing on this, you might have seen and moved on and not realized that right away, and I think it is something worth seeing and noting and realizing. Again, I don't know if this will fund regardless. You'd have to have a whole lot of people who jump on board, although I will say, if you are in any doubt or whatnot, the first 50 people do get that early bird pledge, so this is limited to the first 50 people, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is the first 50 people, if I recall correctly. Say $50, first 50 people to buy this table, so you have another 33 of you who could jump in on this table, and 33 of you would bring this up to, well, more money, but still not at a funding point. Anyways, that's basically why I wanted to focus on the Jade board game tables, both the genuine nature of the creators, as well as the fact that the tabletop was included, which you may not realize, and who knows, maybe they'll relaunch at some point. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel it'll be a waste to not have this come to fruition, and I'm realizing I spent a lot of time talking about this project, which I usually don't do for both board game adjacent, as well as not yet funding. But with that, let's move into the Root the role-playing game, Runes and Rolls. I'm going to catch up by not spending very much time on this project at all. 2,358 backers, $220,000 raised, 17 days to go. This is the Runes and Rolls expansion to the Root the role-playing game from Magpie Games, and that's it. You can go ahead and browse the project if you want to see more. Role-playing games, I never have a good sense of how to talk about them well, so I'm just saying that this exists. But then we start off over here, we're going through the campaigns, starting off with our first one, Cyberpunk 2077, the board game from Go On Board. Because I did not do two back or not to back last week, I did not cover this campaign last week. In fact, I missed a few campaigns, including Ra and all those. We're getting to those today. But Cyberpunk 2077, the board game from Go On Board, $4.3 million raised. This one has a chance of being the most funded board game this year, not tabletop game. This may well be the most funded board game this year. We'll see. I think the only one that I can think of that really has a chance of competing is Evershade or Lands of Evershade from Awakened Realms. But we'll see how things play out. I mean, there might be other things. Actually, there might be other things. There might be other things that I can see beating this. I think I can think of two campaigns that might beat this one. But either way, Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, likely will end around the 6 million mark. They haven't even revealed the all-in yet. I assume there's an all-in. I don't know for sure if there's an all-in. But if there's an all-in, I assume that will jump the price point a little bit. But $4,383,000 raised from Go On Board, taking place in the Cyberpunk world. You can check out my full review on it. You can check out the gameplays left, right, and center. You can check out a ton of content creators who have covered this game. You could also just look at the game and see for yourself. This is a real-time game that uses an app. I'm not going to say it's app-driven because I don't think it's app-driven. I think the app is primarily a timer and tells you story points, but you can play, at least the missions I played, you can play with just a timer, and I believe they have said that you could play the entire game without using the app if you wanted to, just to drive home that this is a game that uses an app, not an app-driven game. But it very much is a real-time game. This is a real-time game that's going to give you a sequence of missions, and in those missions you're going to be going through these floors. Some missions are just one floor, some missions have you moving floor to floor, trying to accomplish goals as you move your people around in these short real-time bursts where you're moving using a card-driven system. You're going to flip over cards and utilize the action icons on the cards, but the more you upgrade your character, the more of the action icons you can use. Meanwhile, every single round, you're trying to accomplish the mission and goals, but you're also drafting these various tiles every single round that are going to help you upgrade. As you take out various enemies, you'll find more things to upgrade, you'll find weapons, and so you're trying to improve your tableau, improve your weapons, and power up as you deal with escalating forces against you, as well as the missions slowly providing different unique puzzles round to round, or different new things being added to give you new elements, new challenges, all that you're trying to deal with within this real-time game. So basically, a real-time game, 2-minute bursts, lots of planning in between them, and trying to accomplish all your goals while you deal with upgrading your characters and building a tableau. combo in this game that has both single shot missions, as well as in-story driven campaign, and an endless afterlife mission generator using the various elements and components that you've unlocked along the way. That's the basic idea of this game over here. Again, you should check out a ton of coverage of it. My review in particular focuses on the fact that as a real-time game and as an app-driven game, you might be walking in a bit more skeptical, which I certainly was, despite having friends who played the game and said how good it was. I was still walking in thinking that it would be an okay game and not a game I loved, and I very much did love this one. I thought it was a very, very, very well done game. My biggest hesitation would be if you're just getting this for solo mode. I don't know how well that will play out. But at any higher player counts, I think this is a lot of fun. But as far as the pledge levels over here, pledge levels are going to give you 130, let's go to the rewards over here, $139 for the board game deluxe pledge, and then the standard pledge over here, if you don't need all those miniatures, you can get for $79 to get the standard pledge. It's going to be significantly cheaper and just not give you all the extra miniatures, which you don't need to enjoy the game. If you're here for the gameplay first, this will be plenty for you, and if you want all the bling, then that's a different story. As far as the add-ons over here, currently we have a few add-ons over here, mostly seem to be focused on characters and throwing in some missions. So this is where what I saw from the expansions doesn't seem to be a huge degree of mechanical changes to the game. It seems to be adding new missions and new characters. If I missed mechanical changes to the game, that might be different. Well, the trauma team adds a little bit of a mechanical change, but it doesn't seem to be majorly changing up the game experience. The trauma team expansion is going to have one player controlling a trauma team there to help out the other players, to help out the other, what do you call them again? I can't remember the term for the players, but whatever it is, the other players in the game. So you have one single player controlling the trauma team. That will be a definitely mechanical change. Then you have the Edge Runner expansions, giving you, well, a whole bunch of edge runners. I believe there's a mission there too, but I might be mistaken about that. And then we have the Johnny Silverhand and NCPD expansion, although you can get the Johnny Silverhand expansion on its own. I found it interesting the way they did this over here, because you can't get the NCPD expansion on its own. But Johnny Silverhand giving you, obviously, Johnny Silverhand, the primary edge runner and all that, as well as new missions to go through as well, and the NCPD giving you new enemies to fight against. We also have V with Mantis Blades over here. I believe this was a free gift on the campaign if you fall in the campaign, but if not, you can go ahead and get it for $10 now to get this alternative sculpt for that. And then past that, we have merch and stuff. We have a mug, we have the metal poster, we have the plushie V with Mantis, and we have the pin set. All these extra non-really board game things you can go ahead and get your hands on. And again, not a lot in terms of pledge options, because I'm sure we'll see those flush out as my guess is we'll have a gameplay all-in and then all-in, but I don't really know how they plan on doing this. Although I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. We'll see what they do, but that's as far as that. As far as stretch goals, I'm not going to go through all 53 unlocked stretch goals because this is not a dedicated should you back on this one game, but I will focus on the fact that we have stretch goals over here, and some of them have cool little miniatures and sculpts or mechs over here. We got that guy over there. We have mechanical changes, we have card changes, we have missions, we have weapons, we have this guy, a new mission boss fight over here, this guy. We have a new character, Alt Cunningham. We have a new mission, Chase Coley boss fight. We have the new game mode over here. So there's different game mode options that'll be thrown in. There'll be different things you can do in the game. We're going to have, again, new character T-Bug. We have a new mission. We have the Cyberpunk sticker set, new quick back set. So again, just new cards and content and miniatures throughout these stretch goals being revealed bit by bit. And of course, we have the new game mode relic using this over here. There's going to be a new game mode utilizing Johnny Silverhand's history or memory, if I recall correctly. If I recall correctly on memory, that's funny. But that's basically what we have over here for Cyberpunk 2077, the board game. Which brings us to the whole should you back or should you not, will it hold its value, all of those things. First of all, as far as personal game interest, one thing I said and focused on my review is if you don't like real-time games, this may not change your mind. Although it does depend. I think the best example I do give is Project Elite, which not everyone has played. That's just the way games work. But I do think this gives you a similar vibe as Project Elite, which is my personal favorite real-time game. Versus other real-time games I tend to enjoy and move on from, Project Elite is the one that I've held on to and kept throughout the years and really enjoy. And this one I think is very much playing in that same vein. But that being said, this is kind of a game that you really have to experience to fully get a sense of it, because real-time is a little gimmick adjacent in the way it works. It's one of those games you can't just see it and just get as clear of a sense, especially if you haven't played as many real-time games, because that totally changes the game experience for you. But past that, as far as the should you actually not will hold its value, that I'm going to put in the yes camp over here. If you look at Go On Board's last campaign, or specifically The Witcher Old World, that is a game that has definitely held its value very well, and this is likely to be true. It seems likely to be true here as well. In general, it seems when Go On Board puts out campaigns, ever since they've done The Witcher Old World, people very well receive those games, and they are overall very well received. They're very much sought out. The campaigns themselves are multi-million-dollar campaigns, and the follow-up when they deliver are a lot of people trying to get their hands on things that are now hard to get your hands on. So overall, Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, is very likely to hold its value. Moving on to Raw, Pharaoh Edition, Reprint, and more. 6,000 backers, $400,000 raised, 4 days to go in the campaign. We have Chad Elkins over here, we have Ron Wright, Raw Traders, Chad Elkins is 25th Century Games. We have Ron Wright, Raw Traders, and Razzia, which is a rethemed version of Ra the card game, which that's why, if you're wondering why Razzia is in this lineup, it's because it technically was a part of the Ra universe. It still throws me off seeing it next to the Ra games, but I understand why it's there. But as far as Ra is a very classic game by René Knizia, one of his best rated titles. He's put out tons and tons of games. This is one of his best rated ones. Ra is going to be a clean auction game, and it's one of the cleanest, best auction games out there that focuses on auctions as the central mechanic, and I think overall it may be the highest auction. I wonder if it's the highest rated auction game. Now I have to go check. Well, at least the highest rated pure auction game. I don't know. But it is a really, really well done game. It has had several editions over the years, and the most recent edition was this Pharaoh edition over here. This one basically gives you, there's a few things. There's the general reprint with the art changes, and there's the deluxe edition with the chunky bits, the metal coins, all those things, or metal, whatever the currency of the game is. But this is basically just a new version of the game. As far as the campaign now, the campaign is now a reprint, so it gives you that version of Ra if you've never had a chance to play Ra, or if you like Ra but never had a chance to get this version of the game, or if you want the Pharaoh edition because you tried the retail edition. Any of those reasons, this gives you the opportunity to get that new Ra in both the standard edition, in the Pharaoh edition with all the extra goodies. It also has a new acrylic edition. So if you want the acrylic edition, which gives you Ra and Raw Traders still together in the acrylic edition, if you wanted those for the upgraded bits instead of the metal coins, it gives you a new option for ways to deluxify your Raw experience. And then we have Raw Traders Expansion Standard Edition for $15, Raw Traders Expansion Pharaoh Edition for $20 to make it more compatible, and we have Ra and Write for $25 for the roll and write version of Ra, as well as Razzia for the $20 plus the promo and all that. That's basically what we have for these various options for getting your hands on these games. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Overall, the Ra game has seemed to hold its value, although there are some caveats as far as how we handle this particular campaign. If you look at Ra on the secondhand market, people who want the Ra Deluxe Edition, the previous Ra Pharaoh Edition has generally held its value. It's hard to get your hands on it. It is a classic game. It is a good reprint of the game. Lots of good reasons to go ahead and seek it out, which means overall on the secondhand market it has done just fine. So if you find this is a game that's not for you, you likely can get your money back. Where it gets a bit more complicated is Ra and Write and Raw Traders and Razzia. Because Raw Traders in particular, that game over there, the price point on it versus where you can get it out down the road, if you're trying to just make sure you have a compatible game to your Pharaoh Edition, it might be worth just getting this down the campaign because it kind of guarantees that availability, and your options down the road are basically in the secondhand market and or conventions or those kinds of things, more limited access. So if you do want to make it compatible to your original edition, then with your Pharaoh Edition, it does kind of make sense to get it here, although I don't know how well it'll do as far as where the availability or access will be like. But if you're interested in any of the retail stuff on its own without the standard editions of the game, or if you're interested in Razzia, I think those are less likely to hold its value. Even Ra and Write itself, I'm not as confident on, just the nature of the game and the availability down the road and the price point you're paying on crowdfunding. So Razzia and Ra and Write are more of a question mark. Raw Traders is more, well, if you just want to make it compatible with the first edition, and if you are interested in getting the Pharaoh Edition for the first time, that will likely hold its value. I assume that will hold true for the acrylic edition too, because again, it is a version of a popular game that is a premium version of that popular game, so I do think it's more likely to hold its value overall. So a bit of a mix as far as how we split this one out on this campaign. Moving on over here, we have Moon Bunny, a board game inspired by the Moon Festival folklore. 2,000 backers, $120,000 raised, 9 days to go. Coming to you from Hot Banana Games, who previously did Steam Up a Feast of Dim Sum. This is going to be continuing, well, I guess not continuing anything. It's just there's another game from them. This is going to be Moon Bunny, where you're going to be moving these bunnies across the galaxy or something along those lines, gathering various recipe tiles, sliding them into your tableau, and trying to fulfill various scoring objectives as you go through it. You're gonna have scoring objectives you can gather. You're gonna have various tiles you can gather, and you're trying to combine them all as you build up your own scoring tableau, utilizing different bunnies and their different movement patterns as you go. So basically a competitive game of herb opping and elixir crafting on the moon. So pretty straightforward, just like, a normal Tuesday afternoon and all that. As far as the pledge levels over here, we have the standard edition pledge level for $39, and we have the collector's edition pledge level for $62. That additional $13 is basically getting you the acrylic tiles, the acrylic bunny standees, the mooncake squishies, so instead of cardboard tiles, these mooncakes are squishies, as well as the gold foiled box sleeve with dual box cover design. So that's what the $13 is getting you, those 4 things. So just in terms of if you're interested in this game, you're trying to break down which one is which, that's going to be the difference between those 2 pledge levels. And then of course there'll probably be a retail release and availability as well. And they do say over here that the collector's edition will see a small price increase in the pledge manager. So if you are interested in getting that collector's edition, getting it now might make more sense because they might bump up the price by a few dollars in the pledge manager. I don't know what the plans are, maybe $5, maybe $10, who knows, I don't know what their actual plans are there because they didn't say. But that's basically what we have for Moon Bunnies over here. Moon Bunnies, you know, basically a pattern-making, tile-drafting game of trying to fulfill various contracts-ish, or various scoring tiles as you try to score as many points as possible while hopping across the astral landscape. As far as should you back it, should you not? Oh, let's talk with shipping over here. Shipping is going to be, I believe, $20 if I'm not mistaken. $20 over here for the game. That's going to bump you up from your $39 to $59 and your $62 to $82 for the game. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Looking at their previous game, Steam Up, A Feast for Dumb Sum, that one overall did not hold its value. The price point of crowdfunding versus the price point that you can get for the game on the secondhand market definitely did see a big drop off overall, and that does make me think that's likely to hold true here as well. I think their games are slightly lighter in their audience in terms of who's going to get those games, want those games. I think the presentation of them is off the charts, but the games themselves are slightly lighter, both from Steam Up, which I did have a chance to play, and Moon Bunny, I haven't had a chance to play this one myself, but from what I've seen of the game, as well as other people I know have played it, it does seem to be a bit on the lighter side. Lighter is not a bad thing, but lighter does have a correlation on the secondhand market. Usually heavier games do a bit better on how well they hold their value, and lighter games tend to do a bit worse as far as how well they hold their value. That is not true on a case-by-case basis. That is an overall across-the-board average. So in this case, both because of the Steam Up as well as this game over here, I'm guessing this one is also less likely to hold its value on the secondhand market if you buy the game and find out it's not for you. Moving on, we have Spooktacular. Spooktacular from Level 99 Games, 1,200 backers, $71,000 raised, 10 days to go. Spooktacular is a tabletop game of B-movie horror just in time for the Halloween season, although I don't imagine you're getting it this year. I didn't actually check, but let me just check that and make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, June 2025, not this year. Just, you know, it's thematically worth backing right now, but it's not actually going to be played right now. But Spooktacular is a game which you're going to be playing out with 20 B-movie monsters over here, taking control of a variety of monsters, classic monsters, made-up monsters, a variety of different monsters over here, and you're basically trying to consume and or scare or frighten all the various people in the game. You're going to set up the board, you're going to set up all the various meeples, and then you're going to take your asymmetric character, and they all operate completely differently as far as what they're trying to do and how they're trying to operate, and then just wander around the board, scaring, consuming, doing all the things typical monsters tend to do. It's a little harder to explain past that because each monster does operate differently, but monsters take turns enacting their own unique way of doing horrifically bad things, although abstracted horrifically bad things, if that makes it feel better, and then trying to win in the game by getting as many points as possible through that consumption and terror and scaring of various monsters. There is a 10-minute how to play video you can watch that will give you a better arc of how things move, but again, a big part of the game is that each monster operates differently, so a big part of the puzzle is trying to figure out how to use your monster to its unique strengths while being mindful of each different monster and their unique strengths and how they will all interplay and how you will be able to, you know, get one step ahead of your opponents, because this is a competitive game, while trying to do all those things. That's the basic idea. So again, a little bit much going on over there. For the pledge levels over here, we have the $55 for the direct to VHS, and then we have a cinematic release for $94, which gives you the bunch of extras over here. We have the play map, we have the posters or whatnot, so some extras over there. And this is going to be off an MSRP. This direct to VHS over here, $55, is off an MSRP of $70, which is relevant because shipping is going to run you, I believe, $15, $15 for the direct to VHS, which brings you up to your full MSRP. And that's tricky because this campaign doesn't really have any stretch goals or extras or anything really exclusive past unless you want some of those extra stuff that you don't, I mean, you never need anything, but they're less gameplay relevant than what you might find in a typical deluxe game. And so this does put this in a weird place. Well, Level 99 games sometimes does find themselves. Sometimes they have deluxe versions and non-deluxe versions. Sometimes there's more reason to back or not. In this case, I think this game has a lot of charm and appeal, but just based off of the MSRP at $70 and the price point that you're going to be paying, which is $70, and based on the fact that MSRPs of $70, usually, if you are a US backer, you're looking at paying around $50 to $52-ish, somewhere in that range, to get this game at retail, which means that right now you might just be paying a premium right now just to get guaranteed access to the game earlier to support the publisher, but it does seem like this is one where you're paying more. Forget the secondhand market, this seems like you're paying more than you would be paying to get this game brand new down the road. So as far as should you back or should you not, again, there are always different reasons to back a game, whether it's FOMO, whether it's supporting the publisher, whether it's guaranteeing you get the game early, but if price point is in any way one of the reasons you're wondering about, I don't think this one makes as much sense to back. Moving on, we have Natera New Beginnings. 943 backers, $72,000 raised, 10 days to go. Natera New Beginnings from Horizon Games, first created, is going to be a tableau building, worker placement, terraforming Mars / Ark Nova / Earth / all of those adjacent game, where you're focusing on both the worker placement of the game across 4 rounds, as you place your workers to various zones to increase your, was it notoriety? I can't remember the name of it. You're increasing to increase your authority in the game and gather resources, and then slowly as the game progresses, new locations are going to be unlocking as players players go and increase their authority different ways. New locations will be unlocking, but meanwhile you're also managing your cards, your hand themselves, and the tableau that you're building to try to optimize and get as many points as possible. So it's one of those types of games. Although those types of games is a big umbrella of games, whether it's Wingspan or Everdell or Terraforming Mars or Arc Nova, there's so many games that lean into this, which the tricky part always means how well does one of these games stack up against all those others. There are constantly new ones coming out, there are constantly old ones that are well received, and there are constantly always going to be more games in the genre because it is a popular genre. But that's the core general idea. Tableau building, 4 rounds, worker placement, all those things, combine different things in whatever way gives you the best version of trading in resources and combo-tastic goodness to drive your engine further, drive your engine forward in a way that's better and more optimized than other players. The pledge levels for this game basically have one pledge level, an $88 pledge level for the deluxe edition of the game, giving you all the nuclear discovery micro expansion, the premium components and tokens. They are not doing a standard edition, they're just doing straight up $88 to get your hands on the game, plus of course shipping, which will be around $18 to $22 based on the US. So you're looking at around basically somewhere around $103 to $108, somewhere in that range. $103 to $110. No, I'm doing my math wrong. $22 plus 88 would be 110. Minus 4, 106, $106 to $110 for a US copy of the game. Which brings us to the should you back or should you not will hold its value, and I'll say I'm skeptical it will, but I could be wrong. This one definitely goes in a bit of the maybe camp. The maybe camp usually goes into where we don't have as much information as I'd like to be able to make a call. We do have is a game that looks very premium, looks very nice, has great art, great components, all of that, that if the game is a complete banger, if the game is really well received, that $110 price point of what you'd have to like sell the game, if it doesn't work for you, if it's not for you, was it worth getting now, is the kind of game that could go for that much if it is well received enough. On the other hand, if it's one of those games that comes out and it's just a good enough game, as there are always many good enough games, then that's a very large price to pay for a good enough game. And so this is one of those where, because there's a lack of knowing the publisher's previous copies, previous games effectively and how well those have done, because of the fact of the very nature of the game as a Euro game at this price point, and it does come down to how well it's going to be received. There's a bunch of maybes in this equation. I do think the price point for a new publisher's first Euro game is fairly high, but if the payoff is there, that is where things can turn around. So I'm going to put it in the I'm skeptical it'll hold this value, but I certainly can be wrong. A lot of it will come down to how well the game is received. Moving on, we have Lands of Galzyr, Dreams and Mysteries. $112,000 raised, €112,000 raised, 2,108 backers, 15 days to go. Lands of Galzyr comes to you with an expansion called Dreams and Mysteries, which gives you new content for the game. It's going to, let's actually scroll down to the new content right here. Stretch goals, expansion content's over here. Here we go. What comes in the expansion? You're going to have a new adventure in the expansion. Well, let's talk about Lands of Galzyr first. What is Lands of Galzyr? Lands of Galzyr is Project Story. Let's go to over here. Lands of Galzyr is basically an adventure game where you're going to be exploring across this map in isolated windows of time, because basically you have these windows of time, but the world stays true to whatever is going on. So as you go through this world, you're going to encounter different things. You're going to go through your arc of the gameplay session you're in, and then when you pick up, new things have happened. You might be in a new season. You might have new people on the board. You might have new allies. You've adjusted your own skills. So the world is constantly evolving as you play, but your sessions are isolated to how many points can you score in an individual session, either cooperatively, competitively, or solo. There are different ways to play through these sessions and these arcs. Meanwhile, what you're going to be doing is exploring. You're going to be exploring, interacting. You talk to somebody. That person you talk to talks about how there's a key in a different village that you can wander to. When you wander to that village, you now be able to go ahead and retrieve that key, and then you make your way to a tower, and you unlock some prisoners in that tower, and those give you some new potential allies, and those that let you bump a skill tree. There's all these things happening in the game that work in this living, evolving world, but then you end your session, and then boom, you come back to it later, and there's a new session, new points, new things, new seasonal interactions. So the world keeps living on, but your interactions and stories in it are isolated to these moments. That's the core idea of how the gameplay works. Whole giant book of adventures, a digital book of adventures, giving you the various, interactions and story points you're going to have. That's the basic idea of Lands of Galzyr. The expansion is going to add a few new things. It adds a new character, a new adventure board with rotating gold dial and spots for skill marks. It also adds 12, well, that's more content over here. We have plenty of illustrations. Nope, where's the stuff? Where's the stuff over here? I'm missing the thing. Why back now? Is it in here? It's somewhere here. Previews, gameplay, how to play, digital. Where are the... There is a thing. Stretch goals. What comes in the expansion? This is not... There was a whole thing somewhere. There's a whole thing here. Where is the stuff? How to play, expansion. I know it's in the expansion. I'm just, I might have to skip this because I can't. Let's go to Project Story. Maybe it's back up here. up here. Here we go. New adventure. Delve deeper into Galzyr. We have a new adventure. We have Noko and Umi, the Agamana and Frog duo. That's going to be the new adventure. We have new personal stories for the characters. So for the current and new characters, we have new lengthy personal storylines where they chase their own lifelong dreams. We have new special abilities. We have strange events taking place all over Galzyr. And then we have, of course, just generally new content. So some new kinds of stuff as well as just new content for the game. That's going to be what the expansion adds. Which actually brings us to the pledge levels over here. Pledge levels are going to be €39 for the expansion plus plushie, if you want that plushie over there. We have €25 for the expansion on its own, and we have €90 for the gameplay all in, and then we have €160 for the all in with accessories, playmats, dice tray, books, all those various things in the game. Which brings us to should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? And this one's kind of a bit of a maybe-ish. If you look at the original Lands of Galzyr and the campaign and how well the game has held its value since then, overall it's mostly held its value. If you look at what people have paid for versus what the second market has gone for, I would say in most cases people are losing out on shipping. There are some cases people have gotten more than what they paid for it, and then also cover their shipping and all that. But I'd say in most cases people are getting roughly what they paid for it, which means less shipping. So people kind of paid a rental fee to try the game, enjoy the game, and then turn around and sell it if it wasn't a game for them. In the case of the expansion, it's going to be a little more complicated. I'd say that if you're looking at the game as a whole, this will likely fall in the same place. There's low retail availability on this game. It's not a game you can easily get your hands on. The expansion is in a weird place where the expansion does have a retail value of like €25 and you're buying it for 20, or I think there's €30. Yeah, €30 and you're buying it for 25. Usually that's not an MSRP versus price point that I can get behind, but MSRPs are a little bit more meaningless if you don't have wide retail availability for those MSRPs, which seems to be the case for something like this based on how the previous game has gone. So I'd say overall this is one where if you're just here for the expansion, probably the best way to get your hands on it is just right now, just go ahead and back the expansion. If you're interested in the base game and expansion, just know that this is one that will probably mostly hold its value, but not fully, so you're kind of paying a small amount to try it out, see if it's for you, and then if it's not for you, you will likely be able to sell it and get most, but not all of your money back on this one. Moving on over here, we have our last campaign of the day. We have Puerto Rico Special Edition. It is a shorter week. I do have a bunch of more campaigns. There are like 5 or 6 more campaigns that are all ending in like 3 weeks or so. Next week, I will not have a 2-back or not to back. I will be at WSBG, as I mentioned already, but the week after that, we'll be able to cover those other campaigns that I did not cover this week. But to that end, our last campaign of the day is the Puerto Rico Special Edition from Awakened Realms. 9,119 backers, $1.9 million raised, 17 days left to go. This one seems like it's trending towards that 3, maybe 3.5. I mean, could go to 4. I think it's a little less likely. This is a bit more of a known quantity. I mean, campaigns always have different arcs, but the nature of Puerto Rico being a known quantity, a known game, means the arc of this is likely to be a drop more front-loaded, although we will see how that plays out. But either way, Puerto Rico Special Edition, this is similar to the way Awakened Realms and Ravensburger teamed up to bring you the Castle of Burgundy Special Edition. This is the Puerto Rico Special Edition, a game that is not nearly as close to my heart as Castle of Burgundy is. Castle of Burgundy is amazing, and Puerto Rico I played when I first got into the hobby, and I played it at 2 players and didn't particularly love it, which is not the ideal player count for the game, which is why I do want to try it again, and I am open to the fact that it's amazing. It is the number 44th rated game of all time. It was for a long time the number 1 ranked game of all time. It is a game with a very clear lineage, a very classic, very well received game. I am open to trying it again and finding out if higher player counts do make this game that works for me. It also could just be when I got into the hobby. I mean, this is one of the first games I played, and at the time I wasn't pulled in enough by the game. But past that, one of the best board games of all time, Puerto Rico. It's gone through a variety of editions. This is the new special edition that comes with, well, both a standard edition and a special edition. Standard edition just focusing on the new art, some new components. The art's just some nice quality of life changes. There's going to be a new expansion, all those things. But there's also the special edition, which gives you all the kind of miniature upgrades, component upgrades, the boat upgrades, all the various things, the worker upgrades, all that stuff that you can just basically make the game as deluxe as possible. This new edition, we have a new expansion designed by the designer. We have a solo mode designed by David Terci and team. And then we have quality of life improvements. That's basically what you're getting over here for this much more expensive version of a readily available game, but a much more premium version of a readily available game, similar to the whole Castle of Burgundy arc. They say in retail you'll easily pay twice the price for the core box and stretch goals. Based on Castle of Burgundy, that is probably true, just in terms of both retail and secondhand market. We'll skip to the should you back it in general. Should you back it on this if Castle of Burgundy is anything to go by, and I think it should be, this is a game that will likely hold its value. So if you are interested in this game, and even if it turns out to be a game that's not right for you, you almost certainly get your money back on it if it's anything like the Castle of Burgundy, which I assume it will be. For the special edition of the game, we have $95. For the standard edition of the game, we have $59, so just a cheaper version of the game, but obviously without some of the upgrades and all that that stuff. As far as the content between the games, we have our double layer boards over here. We have our various characters. We have a game board. There is a game mat that you can get as well, a free mat. We have the various boats we're placing all the various goods on, although there's a fun little, well, we'll show you that in a second. We have the plastic insert with the various building slots. We have our increased building tiles, refined UI, all those things, just again, quality of life stuff and all that. The smaller building tiles. We have the miniatures. The miniatures are going to be available in the miniature expansion. This is a separate add-on for the game. They'll give you miniature buildings. You do have to get this separately. It's not even included in the special edition of the game, which again, if you're familiar with the Castle of Burgundy game, you'll be familiar with that, but the miniatures are a separate expansion you have to get your hands on. We have the countryside miniatures available as well, again, in the separate miniatures pack for the board games. We have the ships and resource, the separate miniature pack for the miniatures. We have the ships and resource miniatures, 3 cargo ships over here. The standard edition comes with cargo ships instead, and the special edition comes with customizable ship decks based on the player count, so you can modify your miniatures without having to get new miniatures and the storage for new miniatures for all your stuff. We have the highly detailed resource markers, and again, in the standard edition, you have the wooden tokens, so again, a nice little premium bit, but more premium bit if you want those miniatures. And then we have the worker miniatures, which again will be small little tokens instead in the standard edition of the game. We have the zinc alloy silver and gold metal coins, or we have the cardboard coins in the standard edition. So again, same kind of conversation, just seeing the discrepancy between those two editions. The standard edition being much more reasonably priced, but also not giving you a bunch of these extras. And then of course there's pledge levels to get kind of all the extras, including the deluxe edition and everything. And then we have the various expansions. There's also a new expansion by the designer, as you said already, and then we get to the pledge levels. Over here for $146, you get Puerto Rico Special Edition. You get the acrylic tiles as well. It's an acrylic tile upgrade, and then you get the stretch goals for the game. For $59, you get the standard pledge, which gives you no miniatures. For the $95, you get the special edition in general. But that's not coming with the acrylic tiles, which is why it's $95. For the landscape pledge, you're going to get the additional terrain pack, and you get all those things plus the terrain pack. And then the Grande pledge is going to give you basically everything from sleeves to art book to all the various things you can possibly get your hands on for $279 for all of that. Shipping is going to run you over here. In the USA, for example, over here we have $18 for standard edition, all the way up to $31 for the Grande Pledge, and that's basically what we have for for Puerto Rico Special Edition from Awakened Realms. The should you back I already covered. This will almost certainly hold its value. The question is, do you need this or not? And that just puts you in the camp of, if you love Puerto Rico, you are almost, well, if you love Puerto Rico, you're kind of making up your own mind, as you should. You're looking at this and thinking, will this improve my quality of life? Will I table this more or less? Will it add value? Do I care enough? If you've played Puerto Rico, this is kind of a bit more of a known quantity, a little bit of guesswork as far as how well will this incorporate into your gaming life. The only thing I could say to help you there is Castle of Burgundy, I only ever play with the deluxe edition of the game. It's just the best way to play it. Now, I don't always use the miniatures in Castle of Burgundy. I usually use the miniatures, although I do think the miniatures here are more likely to be more used. It's the nature of the way the game works. But for me, Castle of Burgundy Special Edition is the only way I play the game at this point, because it's just so nice looking. It's just an incredible version of an incredible game. So if you're a fan of Puerto Rico, you already kind of know which camp you're in. If you're not a fan of Puerto Rico, if you either don't like it, if you don't like it, you probably shouldn't get this, and if you never played Puerto Rico, then this might be a time where you're considering getting the game. To that end, I just say, like, hey, if you can try out the game, like, I mean, this pledge manager will be available for a while. If you can try out Puerto Rico first before dropping anywhere from $60 to $300 on this, that might be worth doing. Again, like, don't get me wrong, this is a very cool, very special edition of the game, but it's also a known game. It's a known quantity. But you're like, sure, you only have 17 days till the campaign ends, but the pledge manager will be open for a while past then, and usually Awakened Realms does not increase their price in the pledge manager. So if you're not sure, just try the game out and see if it's a game for you before dropping between $60 to $300 on a game that you can easily try out. And if you can't get this game tabled, if you can't find a way to table Puerto Rico in the next like 4 months, how much are you going to play this game when you get it? So like, there is always that question as far as how much are we buying with our eyes versus how much are we buying with the practical reality of how we're actually improving our gaming lives and the games on our tables. And that's basically what we have for the Puerto Rico Special Edition, which brings us to the Picks of the Week. Picks of the Week is usually I pick a game that is most likely to hold its value, as well as a game that is my personal favorite interest pick of the week. My personal favorite interest pick of the week, which won't be a surprise if you've been following my coverage, is going to be Cyberpunk 2077, the board game. I really enjoy this game. I'm looking forward to the final version of this game. I think this was an excellent real-time game. I think this means I will now have 2 real-time games in my collection, Project Elite and Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, and others might come in, but usually they stay a bit more temporarily. Time will tell. There's never a guarantee. Maybe I play this for, another 15 hours and decide it's not a game for me anymore. That does happen and can happen, but for right now, I'm very, very interested in Cyberpunk 2077. That is going to be my personal interest pick of the week. And then on the Puerto Rico side of things, we have our game that's most likely to hold its value. I think Puerto Rico, just based on Castle Burgundy, this is the most likely to hold its value. Although I will say, very often in the holding its value conversation, we have less and less that do. This week is actually a pretty good week, from Cyberpunk 2077 to to Lands of Galzyr to Puerto Rico to Ra a little bit. Not everything fully so, but we actually had a bunch of games that will do at least decently in the value department. But I do think Puerto Rico Special Edition is the most likely to overall hold its value if you are interested in this game, and if it turns out to be a game that's not right for you. And that is everything, which brings us to the upcoming crowdfunding campaigns. For the upcoming crowdfunding campaigns, we have Rayman the board game with 6,200 followers on 6,200 people following the campaign over on Kickstarter. This will be launching on Tuesday, I believe, and very intrigued by this one. Designed by Maxim Tardif, creative of Earth, and put out by Pharaoh Games. Very fascinated by how this one will do. It looks very intriguing, and I'm not even a fan of the original IP. I'm not against the original IP. I just never really played Rayman. And then we also have over here Railroad Tiles with 12,000 followers. Railroad Tiles, I'm very interested in this one. Not sure if it'll actually hold up to the magic of Railroad Ink for me, but it's a tile laying game where you connect things based on a game that I like already, so it can't be that bad at the very least. So we'll see how this one does. And that is everything. That is what we have for your 2 Back and Not to Back. Thanks so much for tuning in with me and sticking around for the show. As always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one. So my son was asking me the other day that, like, people talk a lot about how great Switzerland is, but, like, what's so great about living in Switzerland? And I was like, honestly, I don't really know everything, but the flag's a big plus.